Well, as the year comes to an end and many of you consider donating to a charity, consider this. More of your money may be going to telemarketers than to the charities themselves. Case in point, New York's Attorney General says while New Yorkers gave $36 million more in 2010 than 2009, charities only added an additional $3 million to their bottom line. Last year, New Yorkers donated more than $249 million to charities through telemarketing campaigns. The professional fundraisers cut $157 million. That left just $92 million going to charities. Susan Hager is president of United Way of New York State and joins me from Albany. Susan, thanks for joining us. Charities got $42 for every dollar donated 2 years ago. In 2010, it was less than 37 cents. So do these numbers trouble you?
They definitely trouble us, and we really have to congratulate the Attorney General, Eric Schneiderman, for doing this report and raising these very important issues. For one thing, it's important to understand that this is not all charitable giving. This is charities, in fact 411 of them, that chose to use telemarketers to raise their money. It's very troubling that actually over a 10-year period, this is the trend, that such a small percentage of the money actually goes to charities. In fact, 77% of the time, the report shows charities receive less than 50% of the money, and 47% of the time, they received less than 30% of the money. And that hurt. One charity actually didn't receive any money.
Oh, that's a shame. That really hurts the giving process, doesn't it, when people hear things like this?
Well, that's the other problem with the report. It's good to warn donors. It's good for media to cover it. We thank CNN for the coverage. But it may have an effect we don't want to see, which is to discourage people from giving to legitimate charities. And this is the wrong time for that message to be sent. Here in New York State, we were devastated by Hurricane Irene, Tropical Storm Lee at the end of August and early September. We've got thousands of families that need our help. So I would urge donors who are out there to think very carefully and to make sure that they direct their gifts to legitimate charities.
And I've got to ask you, how are professional fundraisers able to keep so much of that money? Aren't there rules in place to prevent gouging?
Well, the current set of rules rely on reports such as these. It relies on transparency and sunshine. It assumes that the donor is going to be informed and do their homework. Unfortunately, that's not always the case. There has been some reluctance to legislate or make rules about the percentage of funds that a charity can keep, in part because who would determine what's the right amount? Is 20% enough, 30%, 40%? So decision makers, the policy makers have come down on the side of making sure that donors know about this, and reports such as Attorney General Schneiderman is a big help in that direction. But I would like to urge donors to be very cautious about how they make that charitable gift in the future.
And give us a couple of ideas on how they can be cautious, and is there any more safety in giving, say, through social networking than, say, a telemarketer?
Not necessarily. So here are the ideas that I would suggest for donors who want to give. The most important thing they should do is they should ask questions, whether they're approached over the telephone, via email, or someone coming to their door. They need to ask how the donation is going to be used, very specifically. And if they're being asked for a second time because they gave last year, they should ask how was last year's gift used. Here in New York, we just had a very significant donation from Verizon to help us assist those families who were affected by the hurricane. Verizon was on the phone for me with a very long time asking us about the guidelines, how is the money going to be used, how is it going to be held. If you're called on the telephone, you should specifically ask the charity to send you additional information in the mail. Charities thrive, legitimate charities thrive on that kind of transparency. And if someone is reluctant to do that for you, then you really need to steer clear of that one.
Great advice.
Do not give your credit card number over the telephone number, over the phone, unless you know who you're speaking with. And the same goes with email, social networking, or texting. Again, unless you know that charity, you've dealt with them before, you should be cautious.
Great advice. We really appreciate it. Susan Hager, president of United Way of New York. We've got a little more advice for our viewers right now. Thank you, Susan. Here's how to vet charities before doling out your dollars. In New York, the Attorney General's website is charitiesnys.com. And for all 50 states, HLN's consumer expert, Clark Howard, recommends charitynavigator.org and give.org.